The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
we are now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
To the Benjamin Dixon Show. My name is Anoa. Obviously, I'm not Ben. I'm host of The Way with Anoa, and Ben's little sister and from another mister. It's July 14th, 2016, Thursday. Not sure if any of you are catching the end of the POTUS Townhall on race relations in America. Would like to hear from you guys. Give us a call, 857-600-0518. Let's see, kind of what's going on in your minds right now. What did you think if you did watch the town hall? There's so much going on. If you were watching Project Sanity, I know this already has been touched on. I know it's already been all over the news and stuff, but today in France, there was, it's being investigated as a possible terror attack. I don't know if it's actually been determined yet, but a truck, today is Bastille Day in France. And for those who are not aware, Bastille Day is the celebration of the storming of the Bastille in connection with the French Revolution. And today's Bastille Day, and there was a big Bastille Day event going on in Nice, France, and a big truck. Somebody drove a big ass truck through the crowds of people. And from the accounts I read, it was actually zigzagging through the crowd and aiming at people. Last I checked, the death toll was climbing over 70, with over 100 injured. I saw Periscope footage of people scattering and trying to run from the scene. Like this is insane. I know people have cynical comments like, oh, you're going to pray for France again. Look, traumatic experiences are traumatic experiences. Craptastic stuff is craptastic. I'm trying to watch my language here. It's tragic, right? And there was a post I saw right before I came on Twitter about how a number of the victims were, of Muslims, because before we start blaming whomever, right? This was a diverse group that came together. This is, something that's part of French history. This was targeted because there were a lot of people gathered and maximum damage, as is the case with a lot of these incidences. Awesome. We have a caller. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from? You're on,
hello,
caller.
Hello. Hey, this is Abraham. No, this is Brian.
How you doing?
Doing good. So I just watched the president's speech, and I think he's like caught in a rock and a hard place, because it's like if he goes one way, it'll look bad on one way. If he goes another way, it'll look bad on another way, and then it's like he's caught in a rock and a hard place. And I also think that he honestly started too late to kind of really get on what's been going on, even though it's kicked back up over the past couple of years. But he's pretty much in a rock and a hard place, and I don't know what can he do. I don't know what can be done on his end, because he's only the president, and as Ben talked about, and I know me and Ben talked about, the president only can do so much. There's things that's even bigger than that. And so he's pretty much in a rock and a hard place in the system that's been really messed up for a long time, even before he was president, or even before he even was in politics, whatever. So it is bigger than him, and it's a bigger situation. It's a bigger thing that needs to be changed. And more has to be changed from the inside and out, but it can't be just one person. But obviously I do wish that he had moved on a lot of these things a lot earlier, or especially when it started to kick off. But he's really, as the president of the United States and not the president of one people, he's really at a rock and hard place. And it's not excuses, it's just reality, and I don't know what can be done on his end because he's pretty much stuck. What would you think?
All right. Well, I appreciate you for calling in. Thank you. And let's see. Yeah, so I definitely appreciate the call. Kicking me off right this evening. If you guys want to talk about anything, tonight, I do have my agenda, but I also want to hear from you. It's another week. It's another week. There's a lot going on, and we definitely need to, make sure that we have spaces for people to communicate and engage in dialogue. I definitely agree. Barack Obama is the president of the United States of America. But I think when we limit this as a Black people only issue, as if somehow he's not expected to lead, right? I for a long time was one of those people who said, well, we're holding him to a different standard. He's an American president. What do you expect him to do? But at the same time, when you take up the mantle and decide, okay, yes, I am going to have this conversation, and you framing in terms of respect and mutual understanding, as if we're somehow on equal footing, as if somehow police officers and the public at large, which when we're talking about police brutality and police killings is disproportionately Black, it creates a very false narrative, and it sterilizes a conversation that absolutely is long past due. But we need more than just have like honest conversations, because the conversation, from what I surmised tonight, comes up if it's tainting his successor, his handpicked successor. True, quite honestly, we should be demanding. The Black vote has been so it's been commodified without any actual value on return, right? We invest in the Democratic Party. We invest in this mainstream establishment in electoral politics, and we get nothing in return. We get nothing but lip service and tragedy, and that's so awful. That shouldn't happen. But if only this. We don't get real solutions. We don't get real, action. What we do get is a whole lot of lip service. We get a whole lot of shaming, and you need to be more understanding. To hear the president say that victims of police violence need to be more understanding of police without any condemnation for the practices and the procedures that exist. He's a constitutional law scholar, okay? So he very well knows about violations of people's constitutional rights, deprivation of liberty, civil rights injustices. He knows. Loretta Lynch knows, right? These are not people who are just lay people who don't understand these concepts. Barack Obama's family home in Chicago sits in the middle of not in the middle, it sits on the edge of, a rather rough neighborhood. A neighborhood, he's in Hyde Park, but you go 3 blocks over, and you smack dab in the middle of the hood, brothers on the block. You got a lot of stuff going on. So I'm tired of the lip service from these so-called Negro leaders. And, get your backs up and get upset because I call people so-called Negro leaders. But, I think about Malcolm X, and that's exactly how they acted. You know what I'm saying? People out here acting like they somehow like a Negro whisperer, because really this event and the other one and every little conversation that's happened in the past week has been to kind of calm people down, because this summer is hot. Here in Atlanta, and we've seen occurrences all over the place. The ACLU just filed suit against the Baton Rouge Police Department over the recent arrest and activity, in the protests that happened in Baton Rouge. Here in Atlanta, we've had protests, we've had marches. We had people in the last few nights who laid siege, pretty much, who sat outside and protested in front of the governor's mansion, demanding a meeting with the governor and the mayor to address some issues. And I wasn't going to get right to this though, but it flows into this conversation. Here in Atlanta, this cop has now been fired, and when you hear the Atlanta Police Department, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, they all admit that the cop was absolutely wrong. What he told investigators was contradicted, completely proven wrong by the dash cam, the footage. But last month, a young Black man was murdered here in Atlanta. Now, mind you, I can't remember if it's Campaign Zero or which group it is, but there was a study that was done. I talked about the unarmed killings in major US cities. And there were like 10 cities or a certain number of cities where all the unarmed killings were of Black people. And despite the fact that we have a Black mayor, despite the fact that we have so many Black leadership, right? Despite the fact that this is the home of Martin Luther King, Atlanta is one of those places that is on the list as having all the unarmed police shootings are all Black people, right? All exclusively. And this young man, Daravis Rogers, was murdered. And we're going to stop using these euphemistic victim of police violence nonsense terms. This young man was murdered. He was blatantly murdered. This cop had no reason, no rhyme, no rationalization, no justification. He even admitted that he shot into this man's car. He's 22 years old. He shot and killed this young man, and he didn't even know who was in the car. He had no clue. He just shot into a car and killed this young man because... So, save me all that. We need to understand where the police coming from. No, the police need to handle their damn business and do some internal investigating, hold people accountable, take disciplinary action. I mean, but it's also on us. The onus is also on us. It is great that people can get out there and demand the right to have it shut down, the protesting. This is great, but that is a tool. That is one tool that is in our box. You know what I'm saying? We can't all just then go home after things calm down, after maybe a prosecutor kind of throws us a little bone and throws a charge in there someplace. No, you got to follow through. We need to be demanding, like has been done here. Like people are starting to do this, right? Because part of the thing we're talking about, well, and it bothers me. No diss to old folks. My parents are old folks, but like people who say things like, well, back in the day when King or, we've seen this before. Yeah, we did see this before. But you know why we're dealing with it again now? Because y'all didn't follow through and make sure that we didn't have to deal with it right now, 50 years later. We didn't have consistency and follow through over the years. Now, yes, we had leadership decimated, but we need people following through. We need people who step up, stand up, and take action in their communities on a consistent basis. It don't matter about presidential election cycles. It don't matter about, we shouldn't wait till somebody gets shot and murdered before we're ready to take it to City Hall and make them hold accountable to the people that they're supposed to be representing. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to be consistent. We got to be active, engaged, and involved, and we have to demand better. So while we got all this, any blue and unite blue, and we need to, because Trump is bad, Trump is evil. Trump is a system of what has been wrong in America since its inception. We live in a country that was built and grounded on racialized oppression, systemic degradation, and capitalistic exploitation. And until we really start taking a meaningful look at what is deeply rooted in American history, we have a caller. Hi, how are you?
Hello.
Name and where you're from and what's your comment or question?
Oh, yeah. Hi, this is Eric. I'm calling from Santa Barbara, California.
Hi.
And hi, good evening. I was hoping to connect with Mr. Dixon tonight, but happy to speak with you. I am really excited by your show, by Mr. Dixon's voice, and I'm so proud of him. I don't mean that in a condescending way, and I hope that you or he doesn't take it that way. Listen, last night was his, benchmark show. He was just so real and raw, and he was really evoking a young Malcolm spirit, and I loved it. And here's what I saw and what I heard last night. When we saw Officer Birch, I believe is the officer's name, in the discussion with the commanding officer, at one point, the officer said, well, what do you want me to do? Like, these young men are breaking the law. And this commanding officer was suggesting, well, it doesn't matter if they're jumping the turnstile or not. Why aren't you targeting them? She said, well, or he or she said, well, what do you want me to do? They're not breaking the law. I go after people who break the law. If they happen to be young Black men, then of course we're going to see if they pop. But as far as just collaring kids who aren't breaking the law, it was just really suggestive. And I think Mr. Dixon, Benjamin really really exposed what is happening out here. We all know it. We've known it for decades. We're starting to see proof of it. and it's about time. Look, if you came out here to Santa Barbara, if you came to the colleges out here, some of the other nearby cities, if you have the same police tactics in these communities that we have in other communities in the United States, then of course the numbers would be different. We all recognize that. So, much thanks to you and to Benjamin. The show is amazing. I'm so happy for y'all's success. And last night's show was just off the scale.
Oh,
great job.
Thank you. I appreciate the call in. Yeah, I'm sorry you didn't get to catch Ben, but Ben had something that took him away this evening, and I'm here in his stead. But I know he'll definitely catch the good tidings when he catches up, because he does like to check up on his baby, the show. His other baby.
Well, you do
so thank you. Appreciate you so much.
And I appreciate your voice as well. I don't want you to think that you're somehow second best. I enjoy
I appreciate. I mean, the love is all. It's all love. Progressive Army is all love. Thank you. Definitely. So definitely, when we're talking about like these incidences and these pushing, there's more that we can do as active citizen participants. We can't just wait for somebody like President Obama to give a speech, because quite honestly, I'm disappointed in President Obama. Because when you think back to 2008, right, when he had to give that really great speech on race, right, particularly when the Clintons started going and their operatives started going really negative and kind of racial, it was really moving and inspiring, and it was like so on point, and it really invoked that understanding, or so it seemed. His conversation and tone now, along with Hillary Clinton's, I mean, this notion that to deal with systemic racism, to rid oppression, we need the oppressed and the oppressors to come together to a mutual understanding. Like, even yesterday with Hillary Clinton talking about Abraham Lincoln, she gave her race speech yesterday, and she spoke in the place on where Abraham Lincoln gave his House Divided speech, and she's talking about Abraham Lincoln and his commitment to abolitionism and ending slavery. Abraham Lincoln was not an abolitionist. Clearly, just like with the conversation around Reconstruction, she needs a little bit of a history lesson. She needs to stop talking so damn much about Abraham Lincoln and the Civil War era, because she don't really know as much as she thinks she does. Why does that matter? No, that was over 100 years ago. When we have people who proclaim themselves to be allies, who proclaim to be such great progenitors of, racial justice, supposedly they understand intersectionality, they're the best for us on these issues, but they fundamentally misunderstand the issues, the concepts, the background information that created the situation that we have today. To have someone sit there and romanticize Abraham Lincoln and his stance on slavery. Abraham Lincoln was not a fan of Black people. He may not have personally, on moral, personal grounds, he objected to slavery, but not because he felt that we were equal and should not be property. He also was not actively fighting for our equal integration into American society. That is something that happened in spite of him, but not because of him. And it's very detrimental and disconcerting when we have these proponents of the left, and we're going to get into the "we are the left" conversation a little bit with my sis Karen, but we have these conversations, and it's really disingenuous, it's really fake, and it's just enough to placate the colored folk so that we get in line and get information and vote, because Trump bad, Trump racist, Trump evil. But check this out. People like Trump are allowed to exist because the same damn news agencies like ABC News, which is profiting right now off of Black misery, Black struggle, and Black pain, allow idiots like him to have a damn platform. And you can say freedom of speech all you want to, but at the same time, there is nothing that's saying that the media empire in America has to uphold white supremacy in the way that it does. You don't need to support neo-fascism and then turn around and try to placate Black folks because we don't have some Black Lives Matter attention on national airtime. Nah, dude. Like I'm really disappointed in President Obama, because all of this, we need to understand people. Now, I'm not going to say that I don't teach my kids to respect people in positions of authority, but at the same time, I'm a person. I live, I exist, I breathe. You should respect that too. So don't tell me all this, we need to walk in each other's shoes nonsense. Like, nah, I don't gotta walk in anybody's shoes. What you gotta do is just respect my right to exist, respect my right to operate in space, and respect my right to just live. Can I live? I mean, like, so this evening, earlier before the town hall even began, it was clear that it was going to be a problem. Erica Gardner, ES_snipes on Twitter, if you follow her, Eric Garner's daughter, was flown down to DC to participate, as were the family members of Alton, Sterling, and others. What's the young man? Dylan Noble's parents were there as well. That's the young white man that was murdered by Fresno police, I believe, last week, 19 years old. That video is that has come out is also bothersome because he was having, there was something wrong with him. You know, like I think he was distressed because at some point, I think that the video, the audio, it's something that's obvious. It's obvious that he's distressed, that he wasn't necessarily, he might have been a danger to himself, but that's no reason to kill him. But it's not even like the police, another one of those cases where the police can't even say that, oh my God, I feared for my life. Like, we need to be involved. We need to be engaged, and we need to be talking to mayors, city council folks, really put in the screws to folks in terms of administrative procedures. Find out exactly what the administrative procedures and stuff are for your local police department, so you know what are they supposed to be doing and what aren't they supposed to be doing. If they don't have, if it's not made publicly available, submit a request. It's public information, open documents. Like seriously. But she posted several different people who knew of the how it went during the taping. It was highly sanitized. She said she was promised that her questions would be answered by the president, and while she ended up getting a moment with him after the taping was done, none of her questions made it on air. Actually, for ABC. Just for some people who are just updating me on Facebook now, it was very controlled. The questions, for those of you who may have watched it. This does not help us have a meaningful conversation on race. Basically, trying to make white people feel good so that they're not feeling bad. I don't need you to apologize to me because you may or may not have had ancestors who may or may not have owned some of mine. Like, that's not the issue. The issue is we have issues today. We have a history that has never been completely adequately and properly addressed, and that has to change. So like I was talking about here in Atlanta, the young man, DeRavis Rogers, was murdered by Officer James R. Burris. And one of the sergeants here said he had no idea who was in the vehicle. He had no idea if that was the vehicle he should be concerned with. He just discharged his weapon. They would just shoot first and ask later. And it's always, instead of taking accountability, instead of owning up to them, if it was an honest mistake, instead of owning up to it, you then lie and try to cover it up. And save me the good cops nonsense, because there are quote unquote good cops out there who will either be silent or help in aid in the cover up. You're not looking out for your brother or sister in blue. You're frustrating justice. You're aiding and abetting a crime after the fact. You're an accessory. Like, seriously, it's a problem. It's very disconcerting. So what's happening now is, okay, so this officer has been fired. And this is actually kind of huge, because Georgia Bureau of Investigation, they've never done anything really in terms of cops and this type of misconduct. However, we had, I think it was an incident last year. We had a couple of incidents last year. We had one, I know the young man was unarmed. He was bipolar. He was running naked through his, so it wasn't like he might have had he was running naked. And the cops make, it's not just mistakes, it's a reckless indifference and disregard for Black life. And save me the all lives matter crap. Yes, all lives allegedly matter, just like all men are created equal, right? 3/5. Yeah. So when we already know, when people in this country say all, they don't necessarily mean all. They mean the select few that includes whatever group they belong to. So this need to hold up these voices, this need to definitely fight for these specific incidences, doesn't mean that people like Dylan Noble aren't worthy of holding up and getting justice for as well. The whole damn system is corrupt. If you upset about Dylan Noble, then you should be upset about young Mr. Rogers right here. I mean, this is tragic. How do you just walk up and just start shooting in somebody's car and you have no clue what's going on, or if that's even a car that you should, not even a car he should have been concerned about? Doesn't even make any sense. Like, who does that? But we're supposed to be understanding. We're supposed to be respectful because, you know, oh, they have a hard job too. There's a meme today that I saw somebody had on Facebook, and as a social worker that said all jobs matter. The social worker said, you know, we go into the same neighborhood as these cops, but all we are, we don't have a gun. We don't have a bulletproof vest. All we have are our clipboards. I chuckled because that's kind of funny. You know, social workers potentially are in some volatile situations as well. You know, police officers, and this again is not to make light of when police officers are hurt or in the line of duty. I have friends, I have, you know, extended family members who are police officers, definitely love and respect them all. But at the same time, there is something that's really wrong, insidious, and inappropriate, destructive, inhumane that is happening in police departments across the country. It is pandemic, it is problematic, and it absolutely has to be addressed. And it's not going to happen by, you know, talking about mutual respect. You know, this is not some nuclear weapons armistice we're talking about here. This is about people's lives. This is about, you know, actually making sure that police, you know, are not acting out of the bounds of their like actual authority. Instead of creating new boundaries for the authority to justify what has been done, we need to actually hold them to a meaningful standard so that people can go home to their families. You know, today the family, today's just so, it's really disheartening. It's really disheartening. And at the same time, we have this rise in, you know, protecting police, like we including the president and Secretary Clinton and others. At this time, it is, like I said, it's unfortunate when police officers are put in harm. It is unfortunate when you have incidences like happening in North Dallas, but those are very, very rare in comparison, right? But somehow the country, you know, legislators. And not just, and this when I'm talking about Democrats. These are Democrats all across the country can get all up in arms about protecting police and hate crime legislation being extended, you know, because Blue Lives Matter. But no one is willing, in terms of these legislators, in terms of the president, no one's really willing to take a hard stance on addressing the issue and police brutality, police killings, and lack of accountability. No one is willing to address the fact that prosecutorial discretion is dangerous and leave so much on the table. And we have people who walk in the streets with tons of complaints in their jackets. We have people who have repeat killings on their records. But we got to respect them. We got to understand what it's like to be in their shoes. If your job is too tough, if you can't cut it, do something else. This, again, doesn't mean I don't respect people or don't appreciate folks who do their job. When we had this debate on a friend's Facebook thread, one of my girlfriends here, she wrote a thread about what she felt needed to be done immediately, and other people chimed in. And one of the conversations we had, a friend who's a attorney general, works for the attorney general's office. Friend said, you know, her police officers all have relationships with their communities. She's an African American woman. And I said, you know, being in Charleston, this is back in Charleston, West Virginia. So in Charleston, West Virginia, that was actually probably my most positive experiences with the police officers. Why? Because they were a part. They were not just they lived in a community. They were a part of their community. Not saying that there aren't issues with cops in Charleston too. I mean, of course there are. There are issues with cops all over the country. But you know, the one time I remember I had two instances, both involving my son. And, you know, white cops, little black boys, not a good combination. But there are experiences where people see people as people, right? Versus a threat, versus whatever. I don't know now how they would see my son now that he's 12 and 5'9", 5'10", and 150 pounds. But back then, you know, these conversations, I think the Boy Scout uniform helped some. But, you know, we need people to be accountable. And I mean, I understand why people talk about, you know, the need for folks to be from these communities. But we have to be able to use our voice. And like I said, people standing up, people demanding action, but we need people to stand with us consistently and not just when it's cool for the gram to be at a protest. We need people there even when the cameras are not there. And we need to continue having these conversations. I believe Sean King even said this in a previous interview with Ben. We need to continue having these conversations. We need to continue this dialogue beyond these high moments of outrage. Recently, I think the ESPYs, right? The ESPYs were last night. And Carmelo Anthony. And so I'm giving Carmelo Anthony the shout out. I'm giving Carmelo Anthony the cred. I read a article that said that LeBron's people are the ones that actually reached out to the the ESPYs to make this happen. But for those who have been following over the past, well, not just the past week, but also following Carmelo Anthony for a while, know that it is Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony is the one that is the activist. Carmelo Anthony is the one that has been pretty consistently involved. For those who are familiar with the group, the Young Lords from New York, his dad was a Young Lord. Carmelo Anthony has done some outreach in Puerto Rico. He not only spoke out and marched in Baltimore last year, but he like I said, he's been consistently active, engaged, and he took to Instagram last week and also had a post in the Daily News. He said, "The system is broken. Point blank, period. It has been this way forever. Martin Luther King marched, Malcolm X rebelled, Muhammad Ali literal fought for us. Our anger should be towards the system. If the system doesn't change, we will continue to turn on the TVs and see the same thing. We have to put pressure on the people in charge in order to get this thing we call justice right. A march doesn't work. We tried that. I've tried that. A couple of social media post tweets don't work. We've all tried that. That didn't work. Shooting 11 cops and killing 5 cops will not work. While I don't have a solution, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't have a solution, we need to come together more than anything at this time. We need each other. These politicians have to step up and fight for change. I'm calling for all my fellow athletes to step up and take charge. Get to your local officials, leaders, congressmen, assemblymen, assemblywomen, and demand change. There is no more sitting back and being afraid of tackling and addressing political issues anymore. Those days are long gone. We have to step up and take charge. We can't worry about what endorsements we're going to lose or who's going to look at us crazy. I need your voices to be heard. We can demand change. We just have to be willing to. The time is now. I'm all in. Take charge, take action, demand change. Carmelo Anthony. Like, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. So everybody's like, oh, LeBron James and the other NBA players did this. Bron done said his little bit here and there over the past year or two. But I the first thing I thought of when I saw the headline crediting LeBron James and not Carmelo Anthony, again, it's not even about the credit, right? But I really do feel the need to highlight the fact that it is Carmelo who has been extremely active, engaged, not just in his community, but in other communities here, back in Puerto Rico. That's important to know, because when people are issuing it, he issued a challenge, and it's great to see that his fellow basketball players took heeded the call. There have been several other athletes who have heeded the call. But I'm reminded of the summer of '68 Olympics when John Carlos and Tommy took the stand, right? When the track and field, they placed first and third. America got first place and third place, and that's the Black Power fist picture, right? And they actually lost their medals over that originally. It'd be great for those who actually do go to the Olympics. I mean, I know there's been a call for Black athletes and other athletes to boycott the Olympics this year for various reasons, including some of the issues that are going on in Brazil. We can talk about that ahead of the Olympics. But I felt the need to really highlight Carmelo Anthony, because what he's saying is exactly right, and he's on point, and we need to demand change. We need to make sure we're talking. So yes, the presidential election and Hillary Clinton is our only hope because Donald Trump is so bad and evil. America's bad and evil. I'm sorry. There are good things here. There are bad things here, but America's bad and evil. I'm not scared. I'm not bothered. I got a really hateful message on African Americans for Bernie today, which I've mentioned I admin. From someone who was mad because we shared Dr. Glaude's piece from Time about how he was not going to be bullied into voting for Hillary Clinton. And that person was outraged, called us Uncle Toms and all types of stuff. It's like, dude, are you listening to yourself? Like, really? I have the right to exercise my vote as I see fit. You can't tell me what to do. And I really do think that we have a lot of work to do in voting, making sure we don't get the bad person in. We've had the Democratic Party telling us for like 30 years at least now that we got to make sure the bad people don't get in, because we got to make sure the bad people don't get in, but they don't do anything else. And we look at this new brand of democracy that was brought to us care of the first Clinton administration. It's whack. It's Republican light. People can say, oh, that's not true because we had this and we had that. Look, y'all are nostalgic, and I'm sure we could do a show on that too. But we really do need to take stock and look forward and keep people accountable. So vote as you vote on the national level. Do what you're going to do, but make sure you are putting the pressure on these people who are in positions, at the local level, at the state level. I was talking to my godmother. I mentioned it before, Professor Judith Scully, she's in Gulfport, Florida. Stetson Law School. Stetson Law School is actually, I think, the only law school to have a chapter of Dream Defenders. Pretty cool. Anyway, so we were talking about this issue of police brutality. As I mentioned before, she's done criminal defense work in Chicago, civil rights work. She's handled several cases involving the John Burge era police brutality cases in Chicago. So we were talking about, she's like, yeah, everybody wants, national police reform. That's really great, lofty idea. But she said that really what we really need to be talking about is looking at strategies on our state and local levels, because that's really where you have the best shot when you're working with your individual police departments, your individual. We need to have, not saying that you abandon the national movement for police reform, but at the same time, we really do need to have these controlled conversations on the local level, because it's that level of engagement, because you can directly, cut out the middleman and address the issues that need to be addressed right then and there. So there's action that needs to be taken. So regardless of Trump or Hillary, we have a lot to work to do in our communities across the board, and we need to keep doing that. So I'm excited to kind of switch it up a little bit, still continuing on. We're going to talk about, we are the left. We are the left. Or as Ben said earlier today, we are leftish. So Karen is here to talk with me, my sister in the struggle, who's actually going to be joining me, from time to time on the way. And, welcome to Progressive Army, sis. Karen's coming on board with us. How are you?
I'm well. How are you, Anoa?
I am hanging in there. It's been another day.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we can't get a break with the news and everything else is going on. I'm probably going to check out this weekend too.
Every day it feels like there's just more and more that
it's insane.
Complicates everything. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, definitely. So I'm sure everybody's already seen the post about We Are the Left by now. There was some letter authored by the left that conveniently excluded a lot of us, right? We are
arguable.
The arguable left. We are the chosen few of the left, supposedly. Ben had a really great takedown of the left. You can check them out on Twitter. They are We Are the Left on Twitter, and several different people. And apparently there was some issue earlier today where they were retweeting someone who was anti-trans or homophobic or something, and they weren't really paying attention. They have these really strange allegiances. A couple of the people are people that Ben has had interactions with, that people have dug up old tweets from them, and they've said some pretty hateful, racist, homophobic, transphobic things in the past. But they're the left. They represent us, not very much at all.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree with that. I don't
Go
think
ahead.
if anybody's familiar with what I've been saying, a lot. So what I'm seeing, and I'm seeing a lot of people who are in a similar position where we who are the left. What does it mean to be a leftist? What does it mean to be on the left?
Right.
Apparently, it just means that you are not a complete right-wing Looney Tune. Apparently it just means you're not a complete outright open racist. And so a lot of what these people who signed this letter and other people among that crowd think is they just define themselves by what they're not. So, we are not Republicans. We are not, evangelical, whatever, people. We're not hardcore homophobes. So
right.
A lot of what they define is by what they're not. And or they might be pro-choice,
right.
or pro-gay marriage and things like that. But as you know, the thing is that I've lived in a few countries, and the way that the left, what is the left, is not just about these personal freedoms, which is also part of the left, but it's also about the larger social structure. And in the social structure, these people who signed this letter are not the left, not for the most part. Some of them might be, but there's more to the left than, as I said in one of my tweets, there's more to it than being pro-choice and pro-gay marriage.
Yes, I saw that one.
You know,
I probably retweeted it.
There's more to it. I mean, the left is about challenging the dominating a system that is a system of exploitation, oppression, financial, dominance by certain, small minority, 1% corporations. It's socialism, which is like regulated, regulated, very regulated, robust version of capitalism, or capitalism that's very well regulated. Or, there's a spectrum, obviously, but these people are very, very close to the center of, or even center right.
Right.
So they can't claim they're the left. I feel like it's arrogant. It's appropriation. Yeah, and they didn't ask any of us who are also on the left. And
apparently some of the people they referred to weren't even included in the initial conversation or even asked to sign on.
Yeah, there was at least one person.
Hubris. It's a lot of hubris on their part, really. Go ahead.
No, sorry. I was going to say they used somebody's story without her consent, and then another person also asked them to remove her name. So yeah, so I've been seeing this too.
Particularly when for those who aren't aware, one of the young women who were involved in the Black Lives Matter interruption in Seattle, Bernie Sanders last summer, she was used as a reference, right? Because quite honestly, a lot of this is positioned as if there's something, basically it's the real left, and basically the Bernie bros that the pseudo left, i.e., the Bernie Sanders rising movement is full of just white people who are threatened by identity politics and don't understand and don't embrace diversity, when that's far from the truth. You're looking at two women of color right here, who defy the constant knowledge, and that letter did not speak for our experience. Maybe there are people out there who that it did speak from, but to speak with such authority and absolutism, as if that is the absolute truth and the whole truth and nothing else could be true, is farther from the truth, really. When you're really like you were just saying, when you're looking at upholding certain systems of oppression and inequality, but hey, we got diversity, when your version of diversity is now we have some Black and Latino and other people of color in these positions of power held by white people, without dismantling the position of power that actually oppresses and subjugates others, you're not really left. You're maybe at best left-ish. It's so reading. So there are a couple of cool takedowns on Twitter, a couple of cool Medium posts and stuff that I've seen. But my biggest problem with this is, like I said, it's predicated on a bunch of fallacies that have been perpetrated over the past year that continue to do so, as if somehow this Hillary Clinton alliance is the best. When we talk about issues of intersectionality, really, intersectionality and feminism are words I want to die. Like, I just want them to die. I want people to stop using them altogether. Not because they're not good words, or not because there's something wrong with the concepts, because they have been completely hijacked. Like I said earlier, it's like when people start using bling bling on TV, like it completely has no meaning anymore. When they talk about how we're concerned about identity politics, they clearly forget about class. Right? They throw class out the window. If you don't agree with them and their, neoliberal diversity, then somehow you're anti-left, you're anti-progress. But what you're calling progress is really just maintenance of the existing system with maybe a smidge of a little something temporarily incremental that might help right now, but it's going to cause disaster down the line. I mean, that's what we saw in the 90s. Under Bill Clinton, you may have had some things that alleviated the system and made financially things a little better for the time being, but we saw exacerbated conditions going into the 2000s, culminating in, the financial crisis, the current condition in Puerto Rico. I mean, it's problematic on so many different levels, and I'm really tired of the appropriation, misappropriation, the the identity politics being used as a shield to hide very bad policy, to hide these are people who support a warmonger who has no problem killing brown people abroad, who has no problem killing women and children abroad, because you know what, it's a business opportunity.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I don't understand how people who supposedly claim to be feminists and who claim to be progressive, you know, who are, okay, first of all, this letter, just to give a background for anybody in the future or who might not have heard about this, you know, was signed by a few dozen people. And I came across this yesterday morning yesterday morning. And then I read through it, and then I saw the list of signatures at the bottom. And that's what, you know, I read through it, and the letter itself read a bit like, you know, okay, so the letter addresses the mostly the you know, quote unquote harassment or abuse or trolling of women on the internet. So there, you know, there were anecdotes and stories and about how women are being harassed on the internet, and basically the gist of the letter was that they're being harassed by leftist dude bros, white dude bros. You know, that was the narrative of the letter. And, you know, obviously Bernie was mentioned. It wasn't mentioned, I don't think, anything. Yeah, it could be that I blocked some of it out, but I don't think they mentioned how many times women have been harassed by Hillary supporters as well. So that was left out.
I've been harassed by Hillary supporters of all shades, colors, and
male and female. Yes. I've been
told by white Hillary supporters I owe white women the right to vote, among other things. Like, yes.
Well, yeah, and all kinds of things, and that wasn't mentioned. So that obviously showed a certain bias against Bernie. And then when I saw the letters signatures, then it made sense to me, because, like, you know, a vast majority of them, I recognize them right away as people who have been shilling for Hillary for this, you know, for the entire previous 6 months, and who have been actively, you know, sort of engaging in a narrative that was apologetic. You know, they were making excuses for all the rigging, the vote rigging. They were making excuses for all the sexism that we saw from the Hillary camp. You know, they were meanwhile turning around calling us sexist and then erasing our gender.
These are the same people who had no qualms with David Brock and what's his name, the other one from Blue Nation Review. I can't stand him. I can't even think of his name. I'm drawing a bunch of like calling things rape that were not rape. Hillary Clinton being told she needs to participate in a California debate, that being compared to rape was absolutely atrocious. Things that are not rape should never be compared to rape, and all of those
while ignoring all the things about Bill Clinton that we know.
All people were absolutely silent on those issues. I mean, they also used the example of like I said, the young women from Seattle interrupting Bernie in the way they were perceived as being treated, and there was no mention of the young women and the young people in general that Hillary Clinton has had tossed out of events that she has told, you know, why don't you just go run for something? I mean, all types of other condescending things that have come out of her mouth. I mean, you know, it's a problem. If we're gonna hold people accountable, if we're gonna say there's an issue, then we need to stop with this, you know, this pseudo positioning of righteousness as if somehow we're speaking up and defending, you know, some concept, when really we're just trying to maintain our position in the evil empire. I mean, you know, I don't have on my Empire Strikes, I don't have on my Millennium Falcon shirt tonight, but you know, I'm still all Rebel 1 up, okay? Like I'm Rebel Leader #1. But and this is why I have a problem with getting behind Hillary Clinton. I get you guys. Trump bad, Trump evil, boogeyman. Ooh, America's bad and evil to some extent, in many ways. And I cannot get behind an effort to misuse. I can't give to misuse struggle, to misuse identity, to misuse so many issues that need to actually be really addressed, that are not, it's not happening. And we want to sit here and project and pretend that, you know, we're actually making some type of progress when really we're not. Things are not going to change for you under Hillary Clinton. You know, they're trying to tell you that things are going to be really bad under Trump. You know, if Pence actually does turn out to be his VP, I mean, that may be a point. You definitely need to make an informed decision for yourself. But I do think no matter what you do voting wise, if you do decide Unite Blue is for you or not, you need to challenge bad narratives and bad rhetoric like this. Like, it has to be challenged.
for some of these people, they actually are working for the Hillary Clinton
Yes,
campaign. Like,
that is even more disingenuous. Yes.
Rebecca Traister works for Hillary Clinton. I think Jessica Valenti has family members who have worked with the Hillary Clinton with the Clinton Foundation, and there are other sort of implications that some of these people are, and then you have like Neera Tanden, right, and I think Joan Walsh, or her daughter works for her. So there's all these connections. That's just the ones we know of. Okay, so there's financial gain for these people, and these people do stand to gain. They'll get they'll get various little positions. They'll be set for life. They'll get a nice six-figure salary, and they are going to write their books and have their little things. So they're going to
get special treatment in the press corps and et cetera, et cetera.
But the rest of us, no.
Yeah, no, and it's disconcerting too, because just like what you said, like we've seen with CNN, right? People using paid analysts supposedly who are really actually paid employees of either super PACs or PACs related to the Clinton campaign, or somehow otherwise affiliated with the campaign. I mean, this has been a spin job from day one, and this "We Are the Left" letter is another hack job. This is another attempt to try and galvanize people and push them towards a certain candidate, because Trump bad is not working. I mean, I was having a conversation with someone on Twitter earlier where we were just talking about how this is just an awful election cycle. You take Bernie Sanders out of the equation, which was really the only thing that even interested anyone on the left, quote unquote, right? It's just really depressing because Hillary Clinton sucks and Donald Trump sucks. And you're just like, this is really, my 15-year-old threatens me with her passport all the time. She's like, I'm leaving. I'm getting my passport and I'm going, mommy. That's not really happening, but it's in the conversation I was having earlier, we were talking about how this is more like 2000, not 2008. 2008 was a historic election. People were really galvanized and energized. This is like 2000. Everybody's like, can this already be over? Gore was okay. Lieberman was a craptastic choice for a VP, did nothing to energize the ticket. Thinking about the vice president's selection of these two, now in this cycle, it's probably going to depress folks even more. Like, it's not, they're going to have to pay people to go vote. Like, really, it's not, I don't know. It's disconcerting. It's really disconcerting.
This letter, I swear to God, I mean, I could be wrong, but it seemed like it was another one of these David Brock things.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was a David Brock organized. Which, for all the Black women that are involved, I'm so surprised that you all would continue to align yourself, considering how she allows that man to exist within her circle and how he has decimated not just people in general, but specifically Anita Hill. Like, that is just, I mean, I don't, people act like things are so unforgivable, but then yet they overlook things like that. Like, even the conversation I was just having about Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter issues, these very poor conversations on race. You have all these people like, yes, Slay Queen, Hillary, oh my God. And then they get upset about these very poor conversations on race, but they don't make the connection. It's a serious disconnect happening right now. And I don't know that we're actually going to change anyone's mind or viewpoint, but I do know that we need to continue to call out for false narratives. And no, that does not mean that I'm ideologically pure. I reject ideological purity. I had people yelling at me last night because I was questioning Jill Stein. I mean, we should question everyone and everything. That doesn't mean you don't get behind people. But you hold people. If you don't ask questions, how can you hold anyone accountable?
Well, it's about degrees, and it's about, for me, it's like, nobody's perfect. I'm not expecting a perfect candidate or perfect anything, but there are different degrees. There are degrees of difference between Hillary and between Bernie, or between Hillary and Bernie and Jill, or Trump on the other side. I mean, it's, on some issues, Trump is to the left of Hillary.
Yes, especially when you talk about militarism, you talk about, Palestine, TPP, Israel. I mean, TPP.
At least
if he brings Pence on board, then it's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. I mean, he's a racist, fascist, sexist. Like, there's no way. I'm not defending him. I'm just saying, on some issues, he's still left of her. So I think a lot of these distinctions about left, right are sort of muddled. But at the same time, words do have meaning, and left means, left is more towards equitable, anti-oppression in all aspects, and that includes class. In fact, that is where the idea of left is like rooted. it's not rooted in just, having gay marriage and having access to abortion and
gay
just
marriage,
those
you think
things.
about it too. Gay marriage, that battle is a very classist battle, because marriage is something that is a privilege that in many cases only people of a certain class
Thank
can
you.
even afford
Yes.
to indulge in.
Yeah.
Most people, when you're talking about issues, we're like, yeah, gay marriage, but we still have housing and job discrimination, which really tends to impact people who are lower income and working class than anyone else. When
Well,
talking about that discrimination.
As a queer woman, this is actually a huge issue because I don't care about gay marriage. I've never actually. I care about equality, but for me, it's not that and this has actually been written about in many papers and magazines and articles and everything, that gay marriage thing has become, it's taken over the LGBT rights thing, where actually it's not the biggest issue, and it became the biggest issue because like a lot of cis gay men and some cis gay women, who have more money than trans youth, for example, or younger gay people or bi people, or a lot of their issues like homelessness,
Right.
Things like that became less important, and gay marriage became more important because there's more money in cis gay men and who want to get married. So it became this issue for the whole community, but it really isn't. And there's a lot of queer people like me who are like, we don't give a shit. Like, it's not the main issue. And it is a conservative issue, really. Marriage is a sort of a traditional conservative institution.
Exactly. It is. And like you said, you have issues with when we talk about police killings, or not police killings, when we talk about killings going unpunished, unsolved, people who need protection. We're talking about, we talk about trans people in general, but trans people of color,
trans people of color and trans sex workers.
Sex workers.
There's so many issues that are,
and we talk about the issue with teen homelessness, like I said, the housing discrimination, the fact that you can be fired because of your sexuality, because of your choice of partner. Well, not choice of partner, but because of those things, you can be refused housing. People who you love. Yes. Thank you for
there's still states, I don't know the exact number, but there's still states that allow open discrimination against trans people. It's called it's called the trans panic or something, and it used to actually be for all gay men, but now it's like basically trans person can just be fired or kicked out of the house for no reason, just because somebody can claim that they scare them, that they are uncomfortable around the trans person. Like, it's literally on the books, it's legal. So it's and this is in the majority of the states.
And this is a huge evil. And when you talk about housing, when you talk about jobs, these are like huge issues that affect people primarily on a class level, more so than anything else. People don't, when you're lower and working class, poor, you don't have the same access to legal recourses to challenge these decisions as if you were someone who was middle or upper middle class or whatever. So it's not a concern in the same way. So no, and here we go back to our conversation about we are the left. There is the left, and then there's leftish. And a lot of people who consider themselves left are leftish.
Exactly, yeah.
Or they're left on certain issues. It's like when people say they're what, socially liberal and fiscally conservative.
That means you're a conservative. That means you're a right winger. I'm sorry, but everybody's socially liberal now. Everybody's socially left. Like,
it's the end thing to be. Even what's his name? Newt Gingrich is getting a little socially liberal now. I mean,
yeah. And the next generation of evangelical Christians, their younger people are like pro gay marriage. So the social liberalism. I mean, they're still like anti-choice or anti-abortion, but social liberalism is confused as being left, but it's not. So, liberal is, I was explaining to somebody, liberalism is about not having the state basically get into your stuff. Like, not, deregulation. That's what liberalism really means. It's not having the state intervene on your life. And that's, most people, I think, agree, right? So we are all socially liberal in terms, I don't want the state telling me, who to marry or what to do, or abortions and various things like that. We're all liberal on that, as in we and the people who sign this letter. But if they're economically conservative, which means fiscally conservative, which means they don't want to have they want lower taxes, they want to cut backs in social services, They, they're not pro like labor laws or like unions and
Right.
environmental regulations. Those are the things that make them right wingers. So they're not left. I mean, you can see, yeah, you're right. They're leftish on some issues, social issues. But if economics cannot just be separated from social issues, they, like
It
you
cannot.
said, they affect people.
And this goes back to the conversation earlier about how intersectionality is a word that has been completely taken out of context. It's been misappropriated, misconstrued. It's been bastardized, for lack of a better term, because they will talk about feminism as it applies to the individual, like how you make something like feminism or racial justice work or any of this stuff an individualistic thing. That's not even at the core of the work. It's driven in equality and parity, and if that's not what you're striving for, you're just throwing around words because you want to throw around words.
And you're just using these words to get yourself ahead of the game, right? You're just you're a narcissist. And I mean, like literally, I just earlier, literally like an hour ago, we tweeted something about.
We have a call. Caller, you're on the air. What's your name and where you calling from, and what's your question or comment?
Hi, so I'm apologizing right now for interrupting, but this is Wendy,
you're
currently
fine.
in Brazil.
Yay.
Hello.
Hi. So yeah, really quickly, I mean, a few months ago when I called in, I spoke to Ben because he was having a bit of a rant, but a respectable one, about the power and the need to really emphasize class. And I remember calling in and saying, we have to be careful that we don't put class above all other aspects of identity, but that we recognize the intersections, right? And I think this "We Are the Left" letter, which is atrocious in so many ways, was sort of a really, really poorly done, failed attempt to do that. So it's sort of what I would like to see, but not through that lens and not from the people who wrote it. I think that there's a way to more intelligently discuss class, race, and other aspects of identity as they overlap without having to completely divorce oneself of a class critique. And I think, as I said last night, for those of you who had seen me tweeting about this, but one of the things that I think is so frustrating about the letter is the timing, right? So some people have read it as a sort of shut up Bernie, like Bernie bros, go to hell, like people who supported Bernie, no more talking, whatever, this is going to put you guys in your place. But at the end of the day, it's also at a moment where we're having a major national crisis about police brutality. We have people dying. And I think one of the things that I personally have seen, and I'm sure many others have seen as well, is sort of a reluctance among even Black organizers in some cases to acknowledge these really, really important intersections between race and class. I see right now, again, a lot of language about, Black people who are rich also get profiled by the police, or middle-class Black people get profiled by the police. And I will say this right now, as someone who used to live in Bed-Stuy, there is a significant difference between being poor and Black and living in a poor Black neighborhood and the amount of police presence that you have, or how you look, how you dress, how you speak. There are ways that class is coded, just like Blackness is coded. There are things that people recognize as related to class and race. And I think dismissing that is a terrible flaw in these movements. And I think it's one of the reasons why we saw a lot of the supposed gains of the civil rights movement not really take hold, because we were constantly pushing up against this inability as a community as a nation, to be honest, to address class differences within ethnic groups and within racial groups. And one other really quick thing, I was speaking to some other people about this last night after reading several responses to "We Are the Left" and kind of trying to come up with how do we address this, right? Because obviously, as both of you have mentioned and as others have mentioned, the people who wrote this are people with power, right? They are part of campaigns. They are writing for magazines. They're writing books. And Sadie Doyle has a book out, right? So they're people with particular material power, and they have access. And I'm just trying to figure out, what is the response? How can we, as people who are, I don't want to say the real left, because I'm not in this sort of, again, purity fight, right? But I'm trying to figure out how do we as activists, how do we as scholars, how do we as thinkers, how do we as regular people who want to see a formed left that is truly intersectional and that does incorporate class and that does incorporate questioning power and imperialism and all these things, where do we go from here, right? And how do we reclaim that language so that we don't have to throw the word left or the word intersectionality in the trash, right? Like, what can we do to get it back? And I think that's the challenge that I personally am having, right? Like, how do we articulate this message without alienating a lot of people? Because that thing was unreadable. I mean, it was a mess. Like, on a purely linguistic level, it was awful.
It was really bad.
So how do we include people, but how do we also not replicate a similar type of language and form of talking about these issues as these people did, which I didn't like. So.
Gotcha. Caller, what's your name? Because I missed your name. Who is this?
Sorry?
I said, what's your name? I missed your name when you called
this
in.
Is Wendy. Yeah, there's a delay because I'm calling in from Skype because I'm still in Brazil. So there's a delay.
Wendy, is that you?
May not have. Yeah.
Oh, hey, girl. Okay, so I'm going to email you. I was like,
Wendy from Twitter?
Wendy? That's Wendy from Twitter. So shout out to Wendy. Shout out to Wendy. I'll be tweeting out Wendy as email stuff. Not email, but her Twitter handle. If y'all don't know Wendy already, because Wendy be dropping knowledge all the time. As I'm sitting there, I was like, Wendy. I'm like, who is that?
Yeah, Wendy is awesome, and her Twitter is
absolutely on point. So how do we? Yeah. I don't know, Wendy. Maybe you need to come on and tell us what we need to do, Professor.
I have an idea. I'm really at a loss, and it's frustrating because I'm seeing.
I was talking to
this from the side, and it's terrifying. Like what it could mean in the future. I've always said I think the language around intersectionality that I saw the Clinton team throw out. It frightened me because I was like, oh no, this is the end. Like you look at this and you say, okay, nope, can't use that word anymore. And so I think that, a big part of power is by silencing one side, your opposition, right? Or people who try to critique you. And if you remove the language, if you get rid of one's language, then how are you supposed to speak back to this sort of power, right? So if you remove the rhetoric, if you remove the terms by which we refer to ourselves, right? Then how do you, you can't call yourself anything. You can't unify around a specific term or idea. And so I think this is part of a larger practice and a part of a larger project that we're going to see going forward if Clinton is president. I don't think this is the end. I think this is just the beginning of what we're going to see going forward. And we have to think of creative ways to counter that.
That's exactly what I was saying, is that this is an appropriation. This was an attempt to take that word, the concept of, they got Bernie, right? They got Bernie to endorse her or whatever. And literally like the next day, I think, or 2 days later, they come up with this letter. And all of a sudden, they just create a Twitter account. They get 25, 30 signatures on it. Some people, they didn't even apparently ask. It seemed like a very concerted effort. And it seemed like a very specific effort. Like people got together and said, okay, we got Bernie. Now, how do we get the rest of these people? Oh, let's just declare ourselves the left and take over. They thought they could just appropriate the whole thing, and we would just sit there and be like, oh, you're the left. Let us follow you wherever you want to take us. It didn't quite work out that way for them. And that was kind of funny, actually. And it's still funny, like it's sort of exploding in these small little explosions. Like, but at the same time, like it's not really right. And yeah, they're retweeting like all kinds of transphobes and this Kathy Brannon woman who's awful. And then there's all kinds of infighting going on.
There's also Smooth Cobra, who's been a Hillary for the longest, and he's so problematic. But shout out to Q. Thanks for updating me. She was just saying that now the post says that it has a final edit deadline, so it has a few more days for people to sign on, but also suggest comments and edits. That might be something for us to do, is to suggest, a well-worded comment too. But I appreciate Wendy's commentary and feedback, as well as question about what do we do and how do we change this. I think that, building on to our own cooperatives like we're doing now, trying to not just, having us all start coming together in groups and stuff like this, having these conversations, and engaging other people in dialogue on these conversations helps amplify our voice and provides us with a sense of, not just a sense of power, but a presence to be able to combat those bad narratives. It provides us support to do so, whether we form writing collectives, do roundtables of our own, and really start building and having conversations. But we do need to be actively engaged. So Wendy, I'm definitely emailing you, because I think something to be done is we should all write. I think we should have some type of, whether it's a series of essays from us, and again, not really into to the real left versus the fake left, but for those of us who see the issues with this presentation and this framing of issues, as if only these people over here have a real understanding of the issues and what's going on, because that's the problem. They positioned us as if this is somehow representative of a certain experience that only they have the answers to, when we've all had experiences, and this misses the mark. It just does not capture that. So I do think amplifying these additional voices, which I'm so happy to have Kieran here with me now. But Wendy, we'll definitely have to connect with Wendy, because Wendy has a lot of other knowledge that I particularly don't have. She has another strong suit. I think that's the thing. We need to start playing to each other's strengths and
I think that
each other's voices.
Exactly. Yeah, we need to make those connections. Exactly. I agree. And I'm always retweeting Wendy. I absolutely love her, the way that her brain works as well. So I love this idea. And I do think, I was talking to somebody, and, I do think that there is a need for more female and people of color representation. I'm not, we do exist, but I think on the platforms, on the big platforms that you see out there, and I'm talking like The Intercept, Jacobin, some of these bigger media outlets that are, squarely on the left, that are, very much leftist. You're never going to mistake them for anything but left. Like, those platforms, they're excellent sources of news and analyses and everything like that. I think there needs to be more female voices, and there need to be, in some cases, more people of color and queer people who need to be the leftist people. And we are out there. Okay, so there's people in any of those categories who are leftist. I am one of them. You are one of them. Wendy's one of them. Out of the categories that I named, there's tons of people, and they're on Twitter. We need to connect with each other, and these bigger outlets, if anybody's watching from any of them or has any connections with them, I think they need to start really looking at diversifying their own thing. And it's not just as a token thing, but to show that they do understand the idea of intersectionality. Because for me, it's like, of course we understand the intersectionality. Like, I'm a queer, brown, immigrant woman. Like, intersectionality is my entire life, but apparently for these, some of these neoliberal types of feminists who signed this letter, first of all, they block people like me. Like I've been talking about, they don't even talk to people like me. They only talk to white men.
They don't want to
so
talk
a lot
to
of them don't even hear the perspective
into their narrative. If you don't fit their narrative, their view of the world, they don't want to talk to you. They don't want to deal with you. There are several people on that letter who are very good for that. They will shut out any type of dissension. And we need to, that is a problem with some people, even, people who consider them the real left, themselves the real left. There is a problem with that. People are not willing to have discourse and constructive feedback. I mean, I'm someone that believes in being respectful. I don't believe in not respectability, but being respectful. Just engage with folks. A lot of the trollish behavior that's happening right now, it is absolutely unnecessary, but we all experience it. So having one group act as if they're especially victimized, it's ridiculous. I mean, they actually encourage and engage in abusive behavior. One of the people on that list, I've watched them attack another woman of color, Rania Khalek, several times, and deride them and have their followers egg them on to attack her too. So people are complaining about behavior that they themselves engage in. I mean, at some point, we all just need to grow up and act like this is real life and not just some make-believe land called social media, and really address, how we're dealing with each other and addressing these issues. But I am so thankful and appreciate you coming on. And like I said, Kieran is joining me, contributing to the way, and we're going to be doing some podcasts and other work together. Definitely want to hook up with Wendy. And if there's any of you out there who are interested in this topic or other topics, definitely hit us up on Twitter. Shoot me an email, thewaywithanoa.com. This has been your Thursday night edition of the Benjamin Dixon Show. Thank you very much. If you are new and you have just tuned in today, please subscribe to the channel. Ben has provided this amazing platform. We have great content all week long. During the regular week, and maybe at some point we'll start adding in weekend content. Coming up with the Democratic National Convention, we will have pretty much round the clock coverage. DNClive.net. We'll have some live streaming. We'll have online commentary. I mean, it's gonna be pretty lit. Also, if you are in DC, there's like tons of events. See you in Philly type stuff going on. But there is a huge event that's being planned by Philly Real Justice. I had a great conversation with Erica Mines earlier today. July 26th, there's going to be this massive Black protest at the DNC. We're tired of being taken for granted by, the Democratic National Committee and its ilk. Like, seriously, Trump may be bad, but you're still going to earn our vote. You're still going to do right and follow through. So become a Patreon, continue to support really good progressive programming. Check me out on thewaywithanoa.com, and my podcast is, I'm now on iTunes as well as, like Ben. I'm trying to catch up to my big bro here. But thank you, and we're out. Good night.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
It's Ben Dixon.
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.